today is Wolf Speaker by Tamora Pierce. This one is by far my favorite book of her Immortals quartet. It has the best plot. I still think there were some issues just because, I think what I whittled my overall problem down to is that Dane is supposed to be 14 and she does not feel 14. So I think that's why, to me, she comes across as very inconsistent in the way that she behaves, because sometimes she acts like a petulant child, but most times she acts and she expects to be accepted like she's some kind of an authority figure, and her voice is not young. Her voice is of somebody who has experienced life, which in some ways she has. She's experienced tragedy and she's had to fend for herself. But on the whole, she does not feel like a young person sorting through young person issues. She feels like an adult. Wolf Speaker, it picks up some odd months after Wild Magic ends. Dane is on her way to Dunlath Valley because the Wolfpack that had taken her in the first book, or prior to the first book, needs help. Prior to the first book, okay, you need a little bit of background probably because you didn't even see my first review, which probably was a pretty crappy review anyways. These books, for me, they're so simplistic that there's almost nothing to talk about. But Dane, she has something called wild magic, which means that she communes with animals. She can communicate with them. And it also means some kind of other funny things regarding animals, but we get into that more here, more in future books. Her mother and her grandfather had been killed by bandits. She basically went crazy trying to find these bandits, and she takes up with a wolf pack. The people come after her. They are unsuccessful in killing her, but she does incur some injuries, and the head wolf broke thing, he licks her wounds. And I guess maybe the other wolves maybe tended to her as well, but just in general, her presence among them changed them. With this knowledge that these people were going to be coming after them, led them to Dunlath Valley. They're in this valley and everything is perfect until the authoritative family starts destroying the landscape. They start to poison the water, not intentionally, but at some point opals had been discovered in their hills. The people in charge were like, we're gonna mine for opals and then we're gonna sell them so that we can get wealthy or wealthier. This just starts to destroy the valley. Longlake Pack sends for Dane and they're like, you need to help us. You need to get these humans to stop destroying the valley because it's a chain effect. So Dane and her teacher, Numair Salmaline, they come to Dunlath Valley and they do exactly that. They interact with the wolves. Dane notices how the wolves have changed. They go off to the castle. Lord Belden and Lady Yolaine, sorry, I keep wanting to call her Yolanda, are like, we're not gonna listen to you because you're a child. We do run into another mage called Tristan, and he is apparently somebody that went to school with Numair. There are also two other mages, plus two merchants who are actually mages as well. Numair is aware of all of this, and he gets Dane out of there. They go back to the inn, and then in the middle of the night, he's like, we need to leave. They are going to come after us. They barely escape, and at this point, Numair says, I gotta go to the king. I have got to tell the king what's happening. They need to come here. Bad things are going to happen if Tristan is involved. There is another character, and her name is Mara, and she is Yolaine's much younger sister, and they are as different as night and day. Yolaine is extremely concerned with appearances, and she wants to do things the way that she perceives the king and the queen do things, whereas Mara is much more down to earth, and she does not like the things that are happening in Dunlath Valley. The Longlake Pack comes to Dane, and they're like, did you talk to the humans? She says, yeah, and they completely ignored me. So the Longlake Pack is like, well, we're going to take things into our own hands. And at the same time, Numaire's like, you need to come with me. We have to get out of here. And then Dane tells him, you gotta go on without me. The pack needs me. Numaire goes off, and like the next day, Tristan and these other mages have set an invisible boundary around the valley, which means that Numaire cannot get in and Dane cannot get out. Immortals can come in and out, however. And so the first immortal that we actually come across are Stormwings, which we met in Wild Magic. We also meet Huruks, which are like evil winged horses. And then we meet the Cold Fang. So what the Longlake Pack had done was they had stolen tools from the workmen. The Cold Fang is this creature that will hunt thieves, and it also will protect something until its dying day. Dane is in charge of the puppies, the wolf puppies. They go off and they encounter this Cold Fang. The Cold Fang is about to defeat them when a basilisk shows up, and the basilisk's name is Taka, or at least that's how I pronounce it in my head. And it's interesting because he's very much not like the basilisk in Harry Potter, where you look it in the eyes and you're dead. In Wolf Speaker, a basilisk can turn things to stone, but it basically it chooses to do it. The Caw comes up, he whistles, and the Cold Fang turns to stone. Then they band together. They go back to where the Longlake Pack is staying. Along with all of this, Dane is learning that she has a new power, and that is that she can join with animals, which for me was a little problematic because we already knew this. The last book, she was getting into the heads of animals, which is what was causing her such issues. So the fact that she can do it in this book, I thought was kind of counterproductive because she already knew she could do it. I mean, I guess it's more about the knowledge of doing it and that it's okay to do it. Yeah, the Badger comes up and he's like, we have greater things for you, and part of that is this skill. So try it, and you might be surprised by what happens. And here's a spoiler, which I alluded to in the first book when I was talking about how her hands turned into hooves. If she is part of an animal long enough, she will turn into this animal, which by the end of the book, she realizes how to become an animal herself versus turn into said animal because she was joined mentally with them. This is when I was like, the fact that those hooves went away so quickly, I was like, I don't get it, because sure, like the first couple times that she starts to join with animals, so she joins with a wolf, and when she comes back, she's like scratching her nose and little hairs come down. She's like, what is that? But the more she does this, the longer the effects last, until the Badger tells her the trick to returning to your human shape is to think about being a human, is to remember who your human self is. And so the fact that she had full-on hooves and they went away like that, inconsistent. Numaire returns and he discovers the barrier and he's like, I cannot get through. She, using a marmot, is able to communicate with him, get information to him, which he then gets to the king and to Alana and to all the king's horses and all the king's men. They are formulating a plan to figure out like how they can get through, how they can save Dunlath. And Dane is continuously reminded that what she's doing here is more than just saving or helping the wolves. Dunlath is the perfect spot to be home to animals, humans, immortals. So there's a greater picture here that she is part of, and then there's going to be an even greater picture further on down the road, which we just don't know about yet. While Numaire is on one side and she's on the other, she starts getting a lay of the land, trying to figure out how many soldiers are there, like what are these people, these nobles up to. The nobles are in cahoots with Carthak and Emperor Ozorn. This is further proved by the presence of Tristan, because according to Numair, he is Ozorn's lapdog. But we do learn that they are mining for opals. This is basically a capital offense because all citizens of Tortal are supposed to report this kind of thing to the Tortalan king. And instead of doing that, they are profiting. They are getting money, they're getting soldiers, because they then want to overthrow King Jonathan and Queen Theet. Dane comes back to her cave one day and she finds that Mora has run away because Mora has heard the conspirators' plan. Obviously, the barrier is up, so she cannot get through. And we get this, like, I don't know, not awkward exchange, but it felt very trite, very one-dimensional. Dane is very judgmental. And ever since the first book, she's had a grudge against Stormwings, rightfully so. And so then Mora, who similarly has grown up hearing all of these things about wolves and other creatures, is naturally, she's only 10. She is naturally afraid of the Wolfpack. And Dane is like, ugh, they're not gonna hurt you, or bats are not gonna bother you. And then on the other side, Mora, who has been shown kindness by at least one Stormwing, is like, why are you so judgmental towards these Stormwings? You don't even know them. And this is another theme where Dane is constantly being told, give them a chance, don't judge too quickly. And that's when I'm just like, Dane does not feel like a 14-year-old girl. Yes, 14-year-old girls hold grudges, and usually 14-year-old girls are in middle school and it's against other 14-year-old girls, not such dire circumstances as this, so I get it, time and a place. But it just, I don't know, it's one thing to harbor a grudge against the townspeople who tried to kill you, and it's another thing to hate Stormwing so much as a 14-year-old girl that you're like, I need to kill every single Stormwing that I encounter. Mora continues to stick it out with them. They are soon joined by the local huntsman who has been enlisted to get rid of the wolves, and he is unsuccessful. They are then joined by an ogre, because ogres had been brought over by the Divine Realms to mine these fields for opals. With all their powers combined, if you know where that's from, let me know. They are able to defeat Yolaine and Belden. They learn that all these Tortalan soldiers, including Alana and then, some other important members, are hanging about. So they're going to poison the water system, and this poison is going to affect the entire surrounding area for 7 years. Now it's imperative that Dane acts fast. Mara goes off, creates a distraction. All of the mages leave. She gets into the castle and she is able to find where they're keeping this blood rain, as well as where they are keeping the model of Dunlath, so that they're able to put this barrier over it. They are discovered by Yolaine, but she soon hightails it out of there, trying to escape. Belden kills himself. He's like, look, I knew I shouldn't have done it. I was greedy. I accept all responsibility for what I've done. She encounters another Cold Fang. They're able to defeat it, but in the midst of this battle, so this is something that I dog-eared, there are two cats that are involved in certain aspects, and one of them is a very young cat named Scrap that Dane had inhabited as she was trying to suss out what's going on inside this rebellion. They try to come to her rescue. The cat, Scrap, ends up dying, and then Dane, who is just so soft-hearted, appeals to the badger, saying, hey, you owe me one. The badger then, I guess, throws it over to the wolf god, who then passes it on to the first cat. The first cat is like, yes, I will grant you this wish, but do not think that we are at your beck and call. She brings Scrap back to life. For me, I was just like, it's sad. I like Scrap. But Dane's reaction, I thought, was a little bit overblown. It's just a cat. In the grand scheme of things, a lot more people are gonna die. A lot of animals have already died, and you're not like, yes, actually she is, weeping over their dead bodies. It's not even that she appealed to these immortals to give, but it's the way she demanded that Scrap be given a second chance. I was like, who are you to demand this of immortals? Like, who are you? She is able to destroy the working model. Numair comes, he gets rid of the blood rain. He then goes and he battles Tristan. He ends up turning Tristan into a tree. And another theme in this book is this idea of a word of power, and how, yes, Numair is strong enough, he's a good enough mage to use a word of power, but he's also a smart enough mage that he won't, because there are going to be repercussions elsewhere. He ends up using a word of power to turn Tristan into a tree, and that means that somewhere else in the world a tree is now a person. I thought that was quite funny. I've always felt that was giggle worthy. Dane transforms into a wolf. She and her pack then chase down Yolaine, which is another issue that I had. Let's see if I can find it. Dane has this tendency to lose her human self. However, she has been given a safeguard in the first book, and then it's not really something she has dealt with. It's not a fear that she's really come across in Wolfspeaker. But what happens is she, and I don't know, and neither really does she, it's left open-ended as to, because of her initial time with the wolves, if wolf form is just a very natural form for her. And so when she becomes a wolf, she, in a sense, loses herself again. And this is something that she does do, and in my opinion, to an expected, acceptable extent, in which when she joins with animals, she loses herself in the joy of being that creature, of being an eagle with the far sight, of being a bat with really great ears. So these are acceptable changes for me. But then when she becomes a wolf, she loses who she is. And then when they come across Yolaine, she's like, okay, this is not what I should do. You know, this is not how I should react to her as a wolf. But then she does it anyways. So she's like, I probably should not leap at her because that horse is going to brain me. But at the first chance she gets, what does she do? She leaps at Yolaine. And she's only stopped from being harmed by another wolf, like knocking her aside. I do not understand how she goes from here to here so quickly and without thought. It doesn't make sense to me. So then we get this epilogue, like a really sappy epilogue about saying goodbye to Mara. Basically all the things that are to come. It is the best of the books only because it does have the best plot. She has the most amount of growth in this novel. I feel like she starts to learn who she is, what she's capable of, and it sets her up for success in future novels. There's not a lot of personal growth, except for she needs to become more aware of the fact that not everybody or everything is bad. It's not until she sees Mara's interaction with the Stormwing recache that she realizes Stormwings are creatures with feelings, and they in many ways are victims of circumstance. But let's get into some of my dog-eared pages. One of my ongoing issues is kind of the sappiness of characters and of the writing. They have arrived at Dunlath Valley. King Jonathan has asked Numair to keep him apprised of what's going on, of what they're learning. So Numair has written him something, and Dane has called an eagle over to deliver this letter. Dane nodded and reached with her magic. Not far from their campsite was the nest of a golden eagle named Sunclaw. Dane approached her politely and explained what she wanted. She could have made the bird do as she wished, but that was not the act of a friend. They give the eagle the letter. Then Numair, who had excellent manners, thanked Sunclaw as well, handing the letter to her with a bow. We get a lot of this. Because it is middle grade, I do like this installation of manners. I like that Pierce is letting her readers know we need to be kind to others. We need to be polite. I'm just really tired of how much she puts in here, because less is more in many instances. And so the fact that not only does Dane know exactly the best way to deal with animals, but you know what? Numair does too. It's a lot. It's just a lot. It's not even a little much. It's a lot. In this instance, Dane has approached Numair. They're on other sides of the barrier. She has joined with the marmot Quick Munch. Now they're kind of chatting it out. Numair, he looks at Dane, as in Dane the marmot, but we have the marmot nodding yes, and then we have Dane nodded through Quick Munch, and then again the marmot nodded. This is, I have mentioned how I do not understand the perspective that Pierce is writing in. This is a prime example of how we go from one character to another. We are third person close with Dane, but then we are omniscient narrator looking down on the entire scene, being like, well, it's not Dane, it's the marmot. So those are the things that it really bothered me, because is Dane in a marmot, or is it just a marmot? Very, very schizophrenic. I had to think about why I dog-eared this, and I'm pretty sure I remember why. Dane has just finished talking to Numair, and I'm thinking it was only like 10 or 15 minutes that they were having this conversation when she's a marmot. She comes to, and earlier she had communed with the bats and had grown bat ears, and so she was like, I don't know what's going on here, but like, I don't want to scare anybody. So she like covers herself up just in case when she wakes up, she still has bat ears. So she has experienced changes before. She does not know exactly why or what's happening. 10 or 15 minutes inside a marmot. She comes to have Mara right there. And Mara's like, what happened to you? Dane has marmot features now, and when Mara asks her about it, she's like, oh my gosh, you can see it? I'm not going crazy. I'm like, of course Mara can see it. Like, why do you think you're going crazy? You physically felt your bat ears. Why did you think that you would be going crazy? Like, it's not an idea. It is a physical attribute you have now taken on. Why do you think you would be going crazy? I don't understand. So here's an example of how Dane feels a little too old for me. I mentioned that she has prejudices and that she can't let hers go, but she essentially expects someone like Mara to, who, as I said, Mara is 10. If you grew up very sheltered and were told, hey, these are the dangers in the world, it's going to be very difficult for you. Granted, it was kind of annoying at times because I was like, let's leave it alone. But it's going to be difficult for you to unlearn those assumptions. So Dane is getting ready to do her scouting mission, and she is leaving Mora on her own, and she's just making sure that Mora is prepared. She is complimenting Mora on basically her survival abilities, and Mora is like, oh yes, you know, it's because the huntsman taught me how to do this. Then Dane is tucking Mora in, and Mora is like, the wolves really won't eat me. And Dane takes a breath and counts to 10 so she wouldn't give an angry reply. At 14, it just doesn't feel like something a 14-year-old would be doing. Maybe we haven't been given enough context. Is that something that she would have learned from her mother? Is that something she would have learned since she has been in Tortal? Dane is very hot-tempered, yet sometimes she chooses to be the adult in a situation. Here is more of Dane and her inconsistencies as to age and maturity. She is talking to the Badger, who's explaining her power and explaining what the big picture is with her hand in coming to Dunlath. She is very dense at this moment. She's just like, I don't get it, I don't get it, I don't get it. So he's like, look, I'm just gonna spell it out for you. This is what we need from you. She listened with dismay. How? She wailed. I'm 14. Only 14. How do I set everyone to rights? Get someone bigger. Get someone older. And then the Badger's like, you don't need to. You are the only person who can do what we need you to do. You're the only one with the skill set that we need. So how does she go from approaching Belden and Yolaine at their castle on behalf of the wolves, being like, you have to stop mining, you have to stop cutting down trees, you have to stop poisoning your water sources, to somebody who's like, but I'm only 14, how do you expect me to do anything? It's very inconsistent how take charge she is 1 minute and meek and incapable she considers herself the next. Like, this entire time that she is in Dunlath Valley, she is trying to figure out how to stop the foresting, how to stop the mining. I mean, I get it, the big picture is very big, but really, all he's asking her to do is to set the valley to rights, which is what she's been trying to do. I'm only 14. What do you expect me to do? I'm like, exactly what the wolves expected you to do, and you tried to do it. So here's something else that bothers me about Dane. She has found Yolaine. She transforms back into her human self, and she's like, oh, I'm naked. Luckily, her clothes are stashed not too far away in a cave. She returns, and then Yolaine is just insulting her and throwing bad language at her. So Dane listened until the woman began to repeat herself, then said, shut up. As it went against the grain to be so rude, even to Yolaine, she added, please. I'm so tired of Dane's manners in the respect that I don't exactly know where her manners came from. In Wild Magic, we definitely get the impression that she knows the boundaries between commoner and a noble or a royal. So I do know that she was taught something during her upbringing. But then we have her here bouncing between, I'm in charge, I'm gonna do what needs to be done, and then, oh, but I'm only 14, what can I do? I don't like this quick turn from, you shut up, like, you're in trouble here too, please. It's just off-putting. So here is my last dog ear, which it kind of feels silly now that I'm looking at it. But it's just, again, one of those things that I don't quite understand about Dane. She's leaving. She's saying goodbye to Mora. Mora's like, why don't you stay? And Dane says, okay, I'll come back after winter because I lived in the mountains for the first 12 years of my life. I've had enough of the cold. So then Mora goes and she says, but winter here is beautiful, protested Mora. The lake's all hard for skating and the trees look like they have sugar frosting. Dane shivered. Enough! You're too good at describing. She didn't really describe anything. I love the cold. I love the snow. So whenever people come up to me or whenever I'm around people and we're talking about where they're from and they are from places like Nebraska, Minnesota, New York, places with actual snow, I just tell them how much I would love to experience snow. And they're like, until you've lived there and experienced it. And I'm like, you're not wrong. From all the stories that people give me who have experience with the cold, they're 100% over it. So Dane is 100% over the cold, yet all Mora has to say is you can skate on the lake and it looks like gingerbread houses with the snow on top. And Dane's like, oh, I can't take it anymore, you've convinced me? Please, can somebody tell me how any of this makes sense? And oh gosh, I just feel so terrible ripping apart these books. And I will say it again, it is a good story in theory. In the overall concept, it's quite nice. But the writing, it feels so juvenile. And it weakens anything that Tamora is trying to do. Ugh. It just breaks my heart. Which is why I'm very glad that we have the Becca Cooper series, because it is so intelligent. And then the new Mare Chronicles, I'm looking forward to rereading the first one because I'm still waiting for the second one to come out. I don't remember being engaged with the first book, but sometimes it just depends on what's going on when I'm trying to read. Like, I could be distracted by other things in my life. So I'm looking forward to that just because I know at least her writing will have become more elevated. Have you read this series? Have you read Wolfspeaker? What is your favorite book of hers? And I'll see you tomorrow for Emperor Mage. Bye.